the session is for subclass 485 and subclass 600. I'm a registered migration agent, and I've been doing this for the past 5 or 6 years. Let's start with subclass 485. All right. It's a graduate visa. If you're a student in Australia and you finished your studies, you'll be eligible for a subclass 485 visa. You need to meet certain eligibility criteria. Obviously, all visas have got eligibility criteria. The basic criteria for a subclass 485 is that you finished your studies in Australia and you meet some other requirements such as your basic, you need to have a passport, um, you finished your studies within the last 6 months within Australia, you've studied at least a diploma or a trade qualification, and then otherwise you study at least a bachelor's degree or higher. Subclass 45 has got 3 streams. There's a post-vocational education work stream, there's a post-higher education work stream, and then there's a second post-higher education work stream. The maximum age for a subclass 485 is 35. It's gone down from July last year. So you need to be below 35 years of age for a subclass 485 visa. It used to be 50 years before, but that's really disappointing that now it's only 35. So you need to complete your studies within Australia, and before you apply for the subclass 485, you need to be below 35 years of age. All right, I've got some questions. Can I apply for a subclass 485 visa extension if I studied in a regional area? Okay, so subclass 485 does have an option for an extension, and that's called a second subclass 485 visa. You can only apply for an extension if you've studied at least a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or higher. There is no option for an extension if you've studied a diploma course. Extensions are available only for those who've studied in the regional area. That is correct, but it is in the post higher education work stream and not the post vocational work stream. If you study a diploma course, you will be applying for a post vocational education work stream, and that does not have extension options. So I was talking about, I will go through question and answers during the session so we don't miss out on anything. And at the same time, I'm going to explain about the visa subclasses so we keep the session active. So 485 has got three streams. The post-vocational education work stream, which is for somebody who studied a diploma or a trade qualification. The basic requirement is the same. You need to be below 35 years of age. You need to have your studies completed in the last 6 months. You need to meet the English study requirements. So that's all on the department's website. It's also reduced. The English study requirement has also reduced recently. It's increased recently. So you need to at least have 5.5 in each in IELTS and overall 6.5 in English. And then if you're going in for PTE, then it's an overall of 57. And then there are different scores for each. So I'm just going to put that on the chat as well for those people who um, are interested. So that's the score for PTE, overall 57, and then minimum 43 for listening, 48 for reading, 42 for speaking, and 51 for writing. And then the other requirements for the 485, the basic stuff that I'm explaining to you is that one is that you need to have the English test result before you've lodged the visa. And it has to be within the 12 months immediately before you are lodging your visa. It's not 3 years anymore. It used to be 3 years before. They've reduced that as well. So it's 12 months immediately before you lodge your visa. And then the other mandatory requirement is that you've done your studies, you've got your English test result. What else? You need to also have an Australian Federal Police check. There are certain people who don't do these things and then end up with a visa refusal. And then you need to again go back and forth with your immigration history in Australia, which is not good. So know the requirements first. it's a very basic visa. You would think subclass 485, what can go wrong with it, right? So it's a very basic visa, but yes, it does get refused as well. People apply without meeting the character requirements. So if you're above 16 years old and you're like an adult, you've completed your studies, you're the primary applicant, you need to apply for your Australian Federal Police check at least one day before you've lodged your 485 application. It is also for dependents above the age of, I think about 18 or 16. So even if you're a dependent, you're the primary applicant, you've got your spouse, both of y'all have to apply for Australian Federal Police check. Right. Now I've got a question about the 485 fees. All right. So the fees for the 485 currently is subclass, sorry, 1,945 for the primary applicant, and then half of that for the secondary applicant. So for the spouse, it's half of that. And the fee, they're going up. The fee is going up from 1st of February 2025. And for the primary applicant, it's going to be 2235 from the 1st of February. So 2,235 for the primary applicant, 1,115 for the secondary applicant, anyone over 18 years. And then if you've got a child below the age of 18, it's 560. So the fee is increasing from the 1st of February 2025. Currently 1,945 and then going up to 2,000. What was that? One second, let me open it. 2,235 for the primary applicant, 1,115 for the secondary applicant, and then 560. Now coming back to the basic requirement for the 485. So it is, I spoke of the um, I spoke of the post-vocational education stream for somebody who studied a trade course, trade qualification. And then I'm going to speak of the post-higher education work stream. So if you've studied a diploma or a trade qualification, your 485 will be valid for 18 months. Not more than that. There are no extensions. I also assist with PR pathways and skills assessment and stuff like that, but we'll explain. I'll have another live session for that. I'm not going to do that in this video. And then after that, your post higher education work stream is for somebody who studied a bachelor's degree or higher. So a bachelor's degree, a bachelor's honors degree, master's by coursework, a master's extended, master's by research, doctoral degree like a PhD, anything, any of those qualifications, bachelor's or higher, you go in for a post higher work education work stream. The basic requirement remains the same. You need to have completed your studies within the last 6 months. You've completed your studies. You need to meet the English level test, the English score, the English requirement. You need to have applied for your Australian Federal Police check within the last 1 year. Um, and then obviously English requirement is also within the last 1 year. So immediately before you've applied for the 485, the rule is that immediately before you apply for the 485 visa, you apply for your federal police check. As in, you can do it maybe 2 months prior or 1 month prior, but you don't have to do it post lodgement. If you do it post lodgement, you're looking at a refusal. If you don't do your English test results and you only lodge your application for the 485, you're looking at a refusal. So your visa would likely obviously be refused. Definitely 100% you'll get a refusal. And it's happened. A lot of applicants have had refusals. So again, like I said before, get it right the first time. Don't allow your visa to be refused. Okay, so the post-higher education work stream requirements are the same. You need to have completed your studies. You need to be on a student visa. Obviously, you would be on a student visa since you're studying in Australia. If you've extended your student visa, if you're on a bridging visa, you can still apply for a 485 from a bridging visa A, or a bridging visa B. You can still apply for a 485 visa, but in that case, you should have completed your studies within the last 6 months. That's the basic requirement. Plus, if you're on a bridging visa, your student visa should have you should have held a student visa within the last 6 months as well. So if you've applied for a extension of your student visa and you're on a bridging visa A, and your student visa, last student visa expired, say 5 months prior, 5 months back, and for some reason you're still on a bridging visa, you've finished your studies, but your student visa has not been granted, you've just got 1 month more to apply for that 485 visa. So we've seen people who have applied for that extension and it's been 6 months and they've not yet received the student visa. So there is something that you need to do. You need to contact the Department of Home Affairs if you're finishing your studies and your student visa is not yet granted, or there's something like that. Then we've always requested for that student visa. Yeah, it's been like 7 months and the client has finished the studies and the student visa is not yet granted and they're on a bridging visa A. You can't apply for the 485 on that basis. You need to have been on a bridging visa only for the last 6 months. So your student visa should have expired within the last 6 months. If that is not the case with you, you're on a bridging visa for like 7 months, waiting for your student visa to come through, and it's not yet happened, then we need to contact the department and ask them to grant the student visa so that you can lodge that 485 application. All right, so moving forward, so that's all about the 485 application, the visa. There's more to it. It's not just that. I may be forgetting a few things. So the fee, like I mentioned, is going up from 1,945 to about a few $100. Maximum age for the 485 is 35. Streams, I've gone through two streams. There's still one stream to talk about, which I will do. That's the second post-higher education work stream. Now, which one is this? It's the same for the post-higher education work stream for somebody who has studied the bachelor's or the master's and higher, for somebody who has studied in regional Australia. Regional, any of the postcodes that are in the regional, living in the designated regional area. So anything other than Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, which are considered non-regional. You will get 1 year extra if you've studied in a designated regional area. You'll get 2 years extra if you've studied in the other regional area, regional center or other regional area, which is, I think, only Darwin, and some other postcodes in Australia. Mostly, it would be extra 1 year if you're studying in places other than the major cities, Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne, which are not considered regional for Australia. So, if that's the case, you get an extension of 1 year, and then studying in regional, studied at least a bachelor's degree or higher. It's not for the graduate work stream, as in the post-vocational work stream. It's only for the post-education work stream, which is the stream available for the extension, post-higher education work stream. In that case, you get an extension of 1 year or 2 years, depending upon where you have studied in Australia. It's very easy. You just have to apply for, you get your first 485 visa. It's valid for a duration of 2 years. Before you're finishing that 2 years duration, the rule is that you studied a course that led to the first 485 visa in regional, and you've lived in regional for the duration of your first 485 visa, then you'll be eligible for a second 485 visa. It's that the basic requirement. So you studied a course that led to the first 485 visa in regional, and then you lived on that 485 visa in regional, lived and worked or whatever in regional Australia, and then you'll be eligible for a second 485 visa. In that case, you can apply for an extension. The fees for that extension as of today is 765. I can check if it's going to go up or not. I'm not sure about that. From 1st Feb, we know that the first 485 fees, they're going up. I haven't checked for the second 485 as yet. Okay, and then you just need to have studied in regional. You need to provide some bank statements and regional evidences that you've studied in regional Australia. You don't need to have an Australian Federal Police check for the extension. You don't need to have a English. test. Although if you've done it, you can include those things. It's always recommended to include an Australian Federal Police check. Department can ask for it. They may not even ask for it because legislative basis is not there. You don't need to have an Australian Federal Police check. You don't need to have an English test for the extension. That is for sure. But if you've done it, you include it. Why not, right? If you've done an English test, you can always include it. Can I apply for subclass 485 while in Nepal? I am yet to complete my course, but I wish to go to Nepal soon after completing the course. My student visa expires on 15th March. So for the subclass 485, your current requirement is that you need to be in Australia while you're lodging the 485. There is no option to lodge a 485 visa while overseas. So you need to be in Australia when you apply for this visa. You can be out of Australia when the visa is granted. So to answer your question, you can travel to Nepal, but I would recommend applying for that 485 visa before you travel to Nepal because your visa is expiring in March 2025. I'm not sure when you plan to return from Nepal. If you've got your documents, if you're finishing your course in February, ask your university to provide your completion letter and transcript. Like you finished your course, you need to have a completion letter and transcript. If you've got those documents, you've done your Australian Federal Police check, you've done your English test, apply for your 485 visa before you travel to your home country, and then you'll be free. You can go to your home country. If you're not returning before your student visa expires, apply for a bridging visa B to return to Australia because you get a bridging visa A within Australia and you cannot travel. It doesn't give you travel facility. You need to apply for a bridging visa B before you travel to your home country. That is the answer. All right, thank you for that. And can I extend for 5 years? Oh, okay. No, you can't extend your visa for 5 years. There's a maximum validity for the 485 visa. Graduate work stream is valid for 18 months, and the post education work stream has got a specific validity, and that is usually 2 years for somebody who has studied a bachelor's degree. And then it is for how long you can stay. Let's have a look. 2 years for somebody who has done a bachelor's degree by coursework, sorry, master's by coursework, and a bachelor's degree, including honors, is 2 years. Master's by research is 3 years. Doctoral degree is 3 years. For somebody who is an Indian national and they have an agreement with the Department of Home Affairs, like Australia and India have got this agreement, Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, then bachelor's is still 2 years. Bachelor's with first class honors in STEM, including ICT, is 3 years. Instead of 2 years, you get a 3 years bachelor's degree. And then the um, master's is master's by coursework would be 3 years. I'm just going to copy paste that in the chat box so you guys know it. All right, that's the validity. Bachelor's degree is 2 years, master's by coursework for everybody else is 2 years. If you're an Indian national, then your master's by coursework would be for 3 years. That's your maximum validity. You don't get it for 3 years. Hong Kong and British national overseas passport holders get the 485 visa. They're very lucky. They get it for 3 years. So, yeah, so those people will get the 3 years 485 visa. Okay. Is it still live? Okay, and then that's about the 45 visa. I'm just going to read the chat to see if I've got any more questions. Okay, there was one from Helda. I'm in Zimbabwe. I'm in Zimbabwe and I have a diploma in early childhood development. What should I do? I don't really know what you mean by that. I don't think this is related to the 485 visa. You've got a diploma in Zimbabwe. Send an email to me. I'm not talking about qualification. Um, I'm not going to do an assessment of your profile in this chat, in this, what do you call that, in this live session. But yeah, if you want to know about if you can migrate to Australia, definitely send an email to me with your CV, updated CV, and I can check your qualification and if it meets the requirement. All right, thank you. Um, moving back, are all the requirements easy to get? Yeah, mostly yes. All the requirements are easy to get for the 485 visa. You need to have your qualification. Academic transcript and completion letter is something that is required. And then you need to have an Australian Federal Police check, your English test result. You need to also have your you need to also have your overseas visitor health cover. So for 485, there are two things. One is your student health cover, which is what you already have. If you're a student visa holder, you need to have an overseas visitor health cover, which is usually by Bupa, Allianz, Medibank, AHM, I think, Medibank mostly. So there are different providers for overseas visitor health cover in Australia. We can give you quotes if you need. Um, Overseas visitor health cover is required for a 485. It's not the student health cover that you've got on a student visa. They don't allow that. Before you apply for the 485, you need to purchase the overseas visitor health cover, OVHC. That is what it's called. And it has to remain valid while you're on a 485 visa. So that's the condition on the 485 visa, meeting the health um, requirements, as in the health insurance requirement. Just going through the chat comments. Okay, I think I've answered most of them. So I've gone through all the three streams for the 485. I've spoken about the post-vocational study education work stream, the post-higher education work stream, and then that extension that is valid for further 1 year or 2 years if you've studied in regional and you've continued to live in regional. That's a benefit of living in regional. So most of Australia, except for Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne, it's are considered is considered regional Australia. Okay. This live session is also for subclass 600. If anybody is interested in bringing their family to Australia, brother, sister, mom, dad, whatever it is, spouse, even the spouse can come on a 600 visa. We have done a lot of applicants who are spouses of Australian citizens and permanent residents. Even somebody who is a spouse for somebody who's on a 491 can come to Australia on a visitor visa. There's a requirement to that. Visitor visa has got a very basic thing which is called genuine temporary entrant criteria, which is a very old requirement on a visitor visa, that you are a genuine visitor. You plan to go to Australia for a short visit, and after that visit, you're going to return to your home country. People who are genuine visitors going on holidays, visiting family, are genuinely considered um, are genuinely considered um, visitors, temporary visitors. So you're going to Australia for a short term. They give you a visa for at least minimum 3 months. You can stay for a maximum of 12 months on a visitor visa. If you're a visitor, you can be, like I said, your brother, sister, or whatever relative. You can be the spouse. You can be a parent. A parent also has got an option of coming to Australia on a visitor visa. Maximum duration that a parent would usually get is 12 months. So I'm just going back to the question and answers. What about the processing time for a visitor visa? I would generally look at the processing time that's available on the department's website. As of today, it's about 27 days if you're applying for a visitor visa. from overseas in the tourist stream. So if I apply for a visitor visa today, the processing time is generally 26 days. A visa should get granted within 26 days. If it's delayed, then there's a way of contacting the department and telling them that the visa application has been in process for that long. Sometimes it can go over 27 days because it's an estimated processing time. So I've posted a link for checking the processing time. We use the same thing as migration agents. Obviously, we go through experience as well to see how long a visa would take to get processed and what documents are generally required for it. Okay, I'm just going to read this comment. I have a master's in commerce, bachelor's of education, and teacher's registration with TRBWA. I am 47 years old. I have 2 years experience. Do I have chance? Okay, I'm not talking about migration to Australia. I'm really happy that you've sent a message to me, Smita, about migrating to Australia, but I'm not really talking about migrating to Australia. Although you're 47 years old, you will not be eligible for a skilled migration visa. The maximum age is 45. You need to be below 45. If you're 47 years old, there are options. There is a 482 visa, which is a skills in demand visa. But in that case, you need to have an employer to sponsor you. It cannot be done without an employer. And being overseas, if you're not in Australia, if you're overseas, it's difficult to find an employer to sponsor you. We usually assist clients who are within Australia for the employer-sponsored visa. And yeah, so because there are so many people within Australia and they're qualified teachers, and they could be over 47 years old. You would have a lot of work experience being that age. But if you're over 47, if you're 47, then your options are limited. You need to be below 45 years old. So send your updated CV to me. I'm already telling you that there's a 482 visa, but you need to have an employer who's ready to sponsor you for that one. It's not possible without the employer sponsorship. All right, now next is I want to invite my brother who's 27. He works at what is that, Decathlon, and is the retail manager at the store in Bangalore. What are the chances of visa rejection? Okay, Jules, I like that question. You need to have your brother, even though he's 27 years old and he's working as a retail manager, he needs to meet the genuine temporary entrance criteria for a visitor visa. There has to be a purpose of travel, there has to be a duration of travel. For how long does he plan to visit Australia? Is it for short term? Is it for long term? Is it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is? He needs to meet the genuine temporary entrant criteria, which is basically the basic requirement for a visitor visa. If he's done that, so how do you meet the genuine temporary entrant criteria? That he's a genuine visitor. How do you prove that? So you need to prove it through obviously documents, evidences. That means if he's working at Decathlon, how many years has he been working there? Show the employment contract, show his pay slips, show his bank statements. He needs to have sufficient funds in his account, in his bank account. Those funds can be shown in the form of savings. If he's been working for a long time, you can show FDs, you can show assets in your name, you can show such documents. A person of 27 years old may have a lot of savings, may not have a lot of savings. You need to have savings for that. It also depends. Okay, so if he's in Bangalore, the chances are a bit better because you're in Bangalore. But if you're in certain states have got, certain Indian states have got this risk of refusal, mostly in the north. But if you're in Bangalore, then and you're a genuine visitor, who are you inviting in? Who are you visiting in Australia? So your sister, what is her status? Is she a citizen? Is she a PR? Is there a reason to visit? What is the reason? Is there a wedding? Is there this and that? Whatever reasons, there has to be a purpose of visit. So you need to show that significant reason why you're visiting Australia. There's a chance that it can get granted, it shouldn't get refused. Obviously, we put in the right documents. We can guide you with the exact documentation that you need for your visa um, grant. So that is what it is for a visitor visa. And um, So visitor visa, you, as I said in the beginning of the um, session, that is for somebody who's your sibling, who's your parent. Mostly for siblings, you would ask for 3 months. You could even ask for 6 months if there's a reason. For parents, 6 months, 12 months. But if you're a parent, you can, the visa is usually for everybody, the visa is granted for 3 years. The fee for a visitor visa is 195 if you're applying from overseas. Um, Subclass 600 visitor visa fee is 195 if you're applying from overseas. And if you're applying from within Australia, it's 490. The fee is not increasing for a subclass 485, for a subclass 600 from 1st of February. It will stay the same. I had a question about this earlier. So the fee is not increasing for a subclass 600. It would stay the same, 195. If you apply from outside Australia, the fee is 195. If you apply from within Australia, it's 490. The fee, the visa, if you're applying from outside Australia, it's a new visitor visa. You're a parent or a sibling or whoever you are, your visa will be valid for the duration you ask for, mostly 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months. And it will be, so the stay is valid for that duration, but the visa will be valid for 3 years. So it's a multiple entry back and forth. You can travel to Australia within that duration. Parents usually have the condition 12 months and 18 months. That means you can stay for a duration of 12 months in Australia, 6 months out of Australia in an 18 months duration. That is usually what the 8558 condition is about. You need to stay in Australia 12 months, out of Australia for 6 months. You can extend your stay if you have a visitor visa and it doesn't have the 8503 condition. You can extend your stay within Australia. If you're a parent and you wish to stay longer, then there are different visa options for you. I will not discuss in detail, but I can assist with those visas as well. Subclass 870 is for a parent of an Australian citizen or a permanent resident. You need to meet certain criteria, like you are a parent of an Australian citizen or a permanent resident. There is no balance of family test. So somebody's asked me, what about my parent? Parents can come on visitor visas. Parents can come on the 870, which is a sponsored parent stream. If they want to stay longer, if your parent is coming to Australia and they don't want to stay for 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, they are living in your home country. You've settled in Australia, you are an Australian citizen, you're a PR, permanent resident in Australia. You can invite your parents for a subclass 870. You cannot do that if you're on the 491 because that's not a permanent resident visa. You have to be on the permanent residence visa, which is usually 190, 189, and 186, whatever. You can even be an Australian citizen. So maximum duration, if they want to stay longer, they can stay for a duration of 3 years or a duration of 5 years. It can be applied for 3 years or 5 years. It can be extended as well. You cannot apply for the 870 from within Australia. There's a rule. You need to be out of Australia at the time of lodgement for the 870. So that is for the parent of Australian citizens and permanent residents. And even if you want to stay longer, 870 is not a permanent visa. It does not lead to citizenship. You stay for 3 years, you stay for 5 years, you cannot extend it. You can extend for maximum 10 years. You cannot extend it further. There is, you don't need to be aged as well, but your child has to be an Australian citizen or a permanent resident. You don't need to meet the balance of family test. There are different parent visas where you meet the balance of family test. That means you've got more children who are living in Australia than any other country and who are Australian citizens and permanent residents. Okay, but then in that case, you need to meet the balance of family test. They can stay longer. That's a permanent visa that leads to citizenship. There is the 804, there is the 143, 173, and then the onshore ones. So we've got just about few minutes more left for this live session. I've been talking for at least 36 minutes now. We can go on about this. I can go on and on talking about visas for Australia. It's all very interesting because, um, yeah, it's quite interesting. Australia visas, there are so many of them. There are visas starting from number 870 and all, like I said, 600, 485 for graduates in Australia. You've got so many options. If you want to go to Australia, you want to migrate to Australia fresh, yes, we can help you with that. If you're already in Australia and you want to extend your visa, your parents are in Australia, they're on 600 visitor visa, we can extend that for you if they want to stay longer, depending on how long they have stayed in Australia. They can stay longer if they want to extend their stay. And yeah, they can stay longer if they want to extend their stay. There was another thing I had to explain about the visitor visa. What was that? It was it any more questions? Do we have any more questions? I will send you the CV. Okay, that's great. Do that. Um, I've spoken about the visitor visa fees. I've spoken about, yes, there are streams in visitor visa as well. So visitor visa has got tourist stream, it's got the business visitor stream, and it's got the frequent traveler stream, it's got the approved destination, which is not very common. It's not very famous because approved destination status stream is somebody from China, and they usually apply through approved, as in you can apply through a migration agent, obviously, but we don't really get a lot of people applying for that. We don't get frequent traveler stream. We get sponsored family stream, but you don't need to really go in for the sponsored family stream as well. You can just go in for the tourist stream. There is the business visitor stream. So if you're visiting Australia for business purpose, which means that you're attending a conference, if you need to visit family, if you need to go on a holiday, if you're a tourist, you apply for the tourist stream. Both of them, you need to be a genuine visitor. You need to show funds. You need to show that you're a person who's returning to your home country after the visit. Whether you're a parent or whether you're a friend or whether you're a business visitor, you need to show, and whether you're a spouse as well, you need to show that you've got funds and you're showing your financials. Mostly, it's the applicant's financials that are considered. You can show supporting financials from the spouse in Australia if you're a partner or a spouse for somebody in Australia. You can show the financials for your siblings, the person who's inviting you, but mostly it's supporting evidences only. They look at your financials. What do you have? What are your credentials? Other things that you can do to show that you're a genuine visitor is your frequent traveler, your passport. How many places have you visited in the past? Have you traveled to Europe, UK, USA? Have you traveled to these countries? Are you a frequent traveler? Have you met the conditions of the other countries and returned to your home country? That's a plus point for a visitor visa. If you've traveled overseas, if you've traveled to certain countries, that's again a plus point that you have visited other countries as well. You're a frequent traveler. Your visa should get granted for Australia. Business visitor stream is for those who are visiting Australia for business purposes. We can assist with that visa as well. We have certain business visitor clients who travel frequently to Australia, and we can assist with business, the visitor stream as well. Um, so if you're visiting Australia for business purpose, your the purpose of your visit should be generally to make business or employment inquiries, to investigate and negotiate business contracts, to conduct, you can even attend a conference or a trade or seminar. You cannot work on a visitor visa. That is not allowed. If you're going to Australia, if you're planning to work, and you will be paid for that work, then a visitor visa is not the right visa for you. Okay, so that is the thing. And if you're on, okay, I've got a comment over here. I'm on a 485 and struggling to find a job in my field. Can you help? Okay, sure. So if you're on a 485 visa, there are people on 485 and student visas and temporary visas who are not able to find jobs because certain jobs require you to have permanent residency or citizenship. Certain jobs are not available for people on temporary visas. But we do have career counselors, we do have uh, career coaching. I do have contacts with people who offer coaching, career coaching, and tell you how you should go forward with creating your CV, how you should contact employers, and how you should apply for jobs, and what platforms you should use, not using Seek and Indeed, but what other platforms you should use. So we do have people who can assist with that. You can send your CV to me and I can put you forward to those people. So it is possible. There have been many temporary graduate visa holders who have have received the jobs in their field. It's not rocket science and it has happened in the past. It depends on you how well you can speak and how you plan your future in Australia and what jobs you're after. If you're on a 485 visa and you've studied something that is really difficult to find a job, then you can even study a further course to enhance your career. So that is another option as well. But yeah, generally you can find jobs. It is possible. You just need the correct guidance for that. All right, so moving forward, I'm just going to see if I've missed out on any questions. I've done the fees. Can a 485 be rejected? I did get this question earlier by somebody. In fact, I had a client whose visa was rejected, the 485. They applied themselves. They didn't apply for their Australian Federal Police check. They put in their 485 visa application, lodged it themselves, and they put in the 485 after lodging they put in the Australian Federal Police check after lodging the 485 visa. And you are looking at a refusal. The main criteria, you don't meet the basic criteria for the 485 visa, then your visa will get refused. Your basic criteria is that you finish your studies within the last 6 months. Certain mandatory documents have to go into the 485 application. I'm not going to go through the documents with people right now. You can obviously contact me and I'll be happy to assist you with that application. But certain mandatory documents are required. You need to have finished your studies. You need to have your Australian Federal Police check. Very important. The correct format is also very important. People apply for criminal checks. You don't need to apply for a criminal check. Work related police checks are different for Australia. Immigration police checks are different. You need to apply for the correct police check. That's the first thing. Most people know about this. It's not like it's not known, but still people go and apply for different police checks. I don't know why they do that. They don't check. They still apply for incorrect police checks. So police check is the first thing. Make sure it's correct. You're applying for the correct police checks. If you don't know, ask. They charge $56. It's a small amount. It's not a big amount, but you can always ask. Check with a migration agent. And then you need to also have your English test result within the last 1 year. You have applied for, you have got an English test result and you've done it within the last 1 year. So at the time of lodgement, it should be 1 year old, at least within the last 1 year. Immediately from the time, so tomorrow, if you're lodging your 45 tomorrow, you could have got your results today for the English test. But if you're lodging your 45 tomorrow, you can't put your English test day after tomorrow. It will get refused. So bear in mind these minimum requirements for the Subclass 485. Don't wait for a visa refusal. We don't want immigration history to get ruined for people. All right, so I think I've spoken about a lot of things. I'm just going to go through. I've got some questions that were asked to me before the scheduled live session. I think I've gone through most of them. I'm just going to see whether I've missed anything. Okay. Okay, there was a question that said that I applied for a student visa and extended my course. I'm on a bridging visa. My course is expected to complete in February. Okay, yes, I already answered this one. So if you're on a bridging visa, you should have finished your studies within the last 6 months, and you should have held a student visa within the last 6 months. If you're on a bridging visa, you finished, it says that your bridging visa expired in November 2024 and you're finishing your studies. So, yes, you've got time, November to January, November, December, January. It's just been 2 months. So, you've got 4 months more to apply for that 485 visa. So, you are eligible. You should have held a student visa within the last 6 months. Okay. Okay, there's a comment that says that, let me see if there are any more comments. Okay, okay. So my mother is in Australia on a visitor visa since 7 months, and I'm an Australian citizen. She has condition 12 months and 18 months stay. Can she stay longer? Yeah, she can stay longer. She can stay for that full 12 months. She's been in Australia since 7 months. She can stay for the full 12 months. If you're an Australian citizen, I spoke of the other visas, the 870 that you may consider if she wants to stay for a duration of maximum what she can stay for 3 years at first, or then for 5 years. It depends upon how much longer she wants to stay. 12 months already, you've got that condition, so you can stay for a maximum of 12 months. She's spent already 7 months in Australia. You can say for 12 months. Obviously, she needs to exit Australia by the end of that 12 months. Or then you look for other visa options. You can look for a 870. Certain requirements have to be met that you're an Australian citizen, which is what you've mentioned. You're an Australian citizen. And then you need to also meet the income requirement. So if you're an Australian citizen, you should have your last taxable tax lodgement notice of assessment should be more than 83,500, your annual income. Your taxable income should be more than 83,500. Being an Australian citizen, if you've got that taxable income, you can go in for an 870 for your parent. Contact me if you need further information. Okay. Okay, there's a question, is there a difference, is there a fee difference if I apply for visitor visa extension in Australia? So I spoke about this as well. If you're within Australia, you can apply for another visitor visa. If you were outside Australia, your fee would have been 195. If you're applying from within Australia, the department charges more. It's 490. If it's your first extension, if you applied for the last subclass 600 overseas and you apply for the first subclass 600 in Australia, then it's 490. If you're applying for a second subclass 600 in Australia, then it's much more. There's a subsequent visa application charge that the department charges. We can always calculate the fees for you when we are doing your visa application. So we can let you know that. Um, yeah, so for the first one is 195 for overseas, and if within Australia, it's 490. All right, so I've done a lot of question and answers for 485 and 600. I will plan to have another live session for you next time on a different topic. I hope I've answered a lot of questions. I hope this has given some information to the viewers. We will post it. I'm going to post this on the timeline as well, see how that works. All right, thank you so much, and I hope you have a good day. Bye bye. My name is Reema Awasthi, and I'm a registered migration agent. Thank you. Bye bye.